Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Storytelling Chronicles. I have a great show today. Let's get into the Bodacious sales lessons with the legend. Let's go.
Life, lessons, logistics. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Storytelling Chronicles. I am the Bodacious Cowboy, and I have a fantastic guest joining me today. He is a friend. He is an ex-boss. He is a legend in the sales community. He has been a client developer for decades. So let's bring him in, Mr. Mike Q.
Hey guys.
Hey,
How's
Mike.
it? Hey Jeffrey.
How you doing?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. For those who don't know you, tell people about you and your background.
Hey, great. I just wanted to pass on your guest last week, Tyson Goman. I just wanted to pass on what a great job he did. And I was kind of mad at him in the first 5 minutes because he stole half my thunder. The guy was so darn good. So Tyson, if you're out there, my compliments, my friend. You were super. It was great listening to you. I learned a lot. With that said, my background, as Jeffrey said, I've been doing this for a long time. I had the good fortune to drop out of college and go find a job because I realized I was not really college material. And someone led me into a job where I was a clerk for a food importing company in beautiful Fort Lee, New Jersey. And I never left that world. I was crawling around warehouses in the ports of New York and New Jersey. I became an unofficial member of the mafia there as a very young guy. I was treated very well. I spent a lot of time counting cans of imported mandarin oranges and sardines and anchovies. And I always had a ton of them in my apartment when I was like 21 and 22 years old. So it was interesting stuff. But as I moved up, I had the, again, good fortune to move into operations. I stayed in operations. I was a driver for a short time. I got all the certifications that I needed at a young age. I then became what they called a driver supervisor at that company. And I learned from some real terrific men who just taught me how to treat people. They really taught me how to work with the people that do the actual work in our transportation and logistics world, all those drivers. So my thanks every day always goes out through my heart to them. So it was a good time. And eventually that company, unfortunately, did go out of business. I'd worked my way up to the point where I was a senior operations manager. I was ultimately responsible for several thousand people in the Northeastern United States. But as I said, that company went by the boards and I needed a job. Fortunately, I was a single guy. And somehow, I still don't know how to this day, I talked my way into a sales job with an air cargo company in beautiful Newark, New Jersey. And I never looked back again. I was able to put my operations training to good use. And I guess I had a bit of a knack for not being afraid to go out and sell. I wasn't afraid in those days to bang on doors. This is way before the internet and things like that. So you literally drove around industrial parks and took down names and walked in and introduced yourself and went to traffic clubs. If anybody remembers those, I know they're still around, but I haven't been to one in 20 plus years myself. But we did used to do that. And we would have some fun, got to meet a lot of people in our industry and got some leads, and on it went until I got a better sales job with a better company, and that became overnight transportation.
Yeah.
Who a lot of people remember they changed. They got sold. They got bought by UPS. Then they got sold by UPS to, I think it's a company called T-Force in Canada, who owns them now. I spent about 8 years there. They were a great company. Again, I started as a regular account manager, ended up becoming director of sales for the Northeast for that company, but then got an offer to help open a company called American Freightways, who was quite large, but they were not in the West. They weren't west of Denver, and they weren't north or east of Baltimore. So I got the chance to be the guy that opened up the Northeast for that company, and I had a blast. Had a great time. We wanted to buy I was with a company called Viking Freight prior to that. We had a short and dynamic history, went out of business. FedEx actually bought them. They are now part of what is FedEx Freight. We tried to buy them from FedEx, and FedEx said, we like you guys so much, we're going to buy you. So the next thing I knew, I was working for FedEx Freight. So that was fun. Had a good time for a number of years. Then I decided it was time for a change. The politics were unhappy. And that's where Jeffrey and I got into the picture together. We met at a small company in Northwest New Jersey, in the beautiful town of Sparta, New Jersey, where Jeffrey lives. It is a beautiful, beautiful place if you haven't been there. So it was certainly the best commute I ever had to an office. We had a ton of fun for we were together there for about 7 years. We had a ton of fun together. We grew the business. It was very successful. They recently sold to a very large conglomerate of some sort. I don't know all the details, but hey, good for them. They made out well. Good for all the people that worked there. We both made a lot of friends, a lot of clients and stuff, people that we both still talk to. So after that, for family reasons, I moved to Texas. I'll make this as brief as possible. My daughter was recovering. She was a cancer survivor, and met and fell in love with a terrific guy, Jersey guy, but his whole family was in education and banking, and they had and AT&T people, and they had all migrated to Texas. So they decided that they could get a house for about a third of the cost in the suburbs of Dallas versus the suburbs of New York. So they did come here. My daughter's mom was not thrilled about the fact that her daughter was 1,600 miles away. So guess who sold his house in beautiful New Jersey and moved to Texas? Here I am. But what I did was I had to get a new job. I had to leave what I was doing. And I went to work for an air cargo company. And I'll never forget the line. It was one of the best compliments I've ever been paid. The man interviewing me was the vice president of sales. And he said, I feel like I'm interviewing my boss. And I said to him, Scott, you know what? That's a really nice thing to say, but I don't want to be anybody's boss anymore.
Right.
I've been fortunate in a lot of ways. I've had all the company cars. I've had the corner offices. I've had some very good successes. I said, I really just want to be the guy that sells until, I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And
Right.
then maybe goes, hits a bucket of balls or just goes home and has a beer.
Yep.
I got to do that, but it was very successful. It was probably the best thing I ever did because, and this all leads into what we're going to talk about.
Right.
It leads into the fact that I didn't know a blessed thing about the Texas market at all. I knew no one. I knew nothing about it. So everything I did, I had to figure out on my own pretty much. Lots and lots of research, lots of good old hard sales, feet on the pavement type of work. And it was the most fun I had. I spent about 6+ years there, and I was successful. And, they say luck is the product of hard work, and that's what I did.
Absolutely.
It did work. I worked hard at what I did, and it paid off. It was a good time, and here we are. So Jeffrey, I've babbled enough about me. Why don't you take it from here and see what you want me to chat about?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I was working for Snyder Intermodal at the time. And when I met Mike, Mike actually hired me, brought me on board. Company was Total Logistics. And it was so happened it was in my town where I lived at the time, still do. And I was actually going to use Total Logistics as a skipping stone. My idea of staying there because it was close to home was 6 months and then go to another position. Fortunately, Mike and I became very, very good friends. Mike beat me up. I sucked at sales. My emails were horrific. Mike taught me how to write a proper email. My verbiage was wrong. I could just go on and on. And Mike was a huge, huge part of my success and moving on. I always said to Mike, I am not a salesman. I still believe that. He goes, you don't know, but you are a salesman. Every time I talk to you, you just don't realize it. I'm more of a closer and I'm good at closing business, but I have a little bit of a hard time putting my foot through the door, but Mike helped me. My objective in this career of logistics and supply chain was not to be a sales guy. Mike kind of molded me and helped me get through that. Mike did my evaluations. He was my lead guy, and he really helped me through some bad times. And I think it's likewise for Mike as well. And we've been friends for a very, very, very long time. Now, one of the things I want to get into, Mike, is especially in a bear market right now, is client development. This is where, you are that legend. Folks, I've seen Mike pull in millions and millions and millions of dollars. This is a guy that hammers a phone. This is a guy with no exaggeration could fill up a bathroom from wall to wall, floor to ceiling with binders of all C-level contacts. And do you think that he's thrown them away? This man has journals from every single contact that he's ever reached out to since he started selling. And that's not an exaggeration. He is fantastic. So, Mike, let's get into the client development part of this conversation, the pros and cons during a bear market. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, Jeffrey, from a client development pros and cons standpoint, let's face it, the basic is client development is the only way to bring on revenue. And what I gave a lot of thought to and have, as we all have over the years, is what's the best way to approach a prospect? And I did some research recently, just looking at how people, if things have changed in the last couple of years, and they really haven't. Email is by far the dominant choice of prospects. One of the things that was suggested to me by someone I talked to about this, and I completely agree with it because it's kind of the way I did it too, but it's don't rush to load up a whole bunch of email blasts in your marketing system. Part of the reason, and this was a quote from a customer, an old customer that I talked to, and he said that part of the reason email is preferred choice for prospects is that they're less intrusive than phone calls, and they're also easier to ignore. So I said, oh, okay, yeah, this is true. All you do is click delete. Even if you don't want to click delete, it's still ignored. So one of the things he said to me was like, the best thing you can do is to be very prospect specific. ABC company, know about their business, know about their industry, or be able to focus in on, in our case as a group, not knowing what everybody on this call does, but we're all in the transportation world in one way or another. So be kind of mode specific. If you know who your competition is, that's a big thing, because buyers are just too busy to pay attention to the large volumes of emails they receive, especially if it's a genetic pitch. What they don't want, this person said this specifically to me, was they want people that focus on the seller's products and not on your problems. You know, for freight companies, buyers say that straight to the point emails with lane information are particularly effective. So when you think about it, if you know something about their lanes, you've at least got an opening to a conversation. So that's an area that I focus on. And then, of course, if you have more specifics, the more specific you can be, the better off, the better chance you do have of gaining a conversation, and better yet, a meeting with those people. As far as the cons of client development, I've never looked at it any other way than this. And I know you're all probably going to laugh, but let's face it, no client development means no revenue and you're out of business. You just have to do it. It's as simple as that. And if you're failing, not so much at client development, let's say, but with a particular prospect, it is time to move on. There is a point of, you know, I've always argued internally, and I'm sure we all do, the difference between being persistent and being just plain annoying. You know, you really have to find the fine line between, I always consider myself persistent, but I'm never afraid to get to that point where I need to think, am I being persistent? Do I make that one more phone call? Do I send that one more email? Do I know a little something about this person personally, where I can bring that up as an opening, or am I just being a pain in the ass?
Right.
And if I am, it's at the very least, it's time to take a break. And, you know, that's the way I do see it as far as the pros and cons. Jeff, if you wanted me to continue into the bear market as you asked about.
Yeah, well, you know, and then, you know, we are talking about client development, and you got the new salesman that's coming on board. And of course, if you're in the brokerage or even in sales side of logistics, you have to sell. That's part of your job, right? And it's either you sell or you're out of a job, right? So with that in mind, Mike, how do you help a newbie that's coming on board, that's trying to find their niche, what their value is, how not to devalue what their value is once it's found? Because we all go through that, right? It's like we dabble in a few different things, a few different modes, a few different verticals, and we have that aha moment where we finally realize. So how do you pump up somebody that's trying to find their niche, trying to find that mode, trying to find that vertical, and help them to level up to get to where they need to be?
So are you asking me, you know, what I do to help someone that, let's say they have no or very little experience,
Yeah.
how to kind of get them up to speed? Yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at it. And, you know, one of the old fashioned ways is, of course, to like the way probably you and I might have been trained way back when, where people say, well, here, let's call this person at this company. And, you know, let me see how, here's what we want to achieve. You know, we want to get an appointment, or we want to get them to stay on the phone for 2 minutes just to tell us a little bit about their company. And you could do it that way. And then we've all heard probably 1,000 variations of that through our careers. And the thing that I found that really was most helpful was that the best way to do it is to sit with a new person and kind of let them have at it. And then the two of you talk about what happened during that phone call, and let them, you know, always, I always tried hard to give people free rein to their thoughts, even if I didn't think they were right. And the reason I did was, 50% of the time, I'm wrong. And I wasn't afraid to hear, heaven knows I might get something really good out of this, which I almost always did.
Yeah.
Someone who's inexperienced, also the way I look at it, they're coming at things through a fresh perspective too. They're not looking at what Mike's done for like 15 years.
Right.
And just, I'm like, well, I've been doing that for 15 years. Well, maybe I'd be better if I didn't do it that way.
Correct.
So I do try hard to keep an open mind and work with people. I do believe that everybody has their own style. And let's face it, as we know, not everybody's cut out to do it either. Some people just aren't built for it. It's not easy. It's one of the most uncomfortable things in the world. And I grew up as a shy kid. I was told that many, many times by, my parents and, older relatives, when I was a boy and growing up, that I was too shy. You need to speak up. And I don't know where it came from, but somehow when I ended up in sales, I found how to lose the shy part.
Yeah.
And was, lost all fear of talking to strangers,
Yep.
no matter what. So I hope that helps people. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. You surely can't be an introvert in this kind of business, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, and one thing that you taught me decades ago was you have to be comfortable in an uncomfortable position, meaning that, listen, when you make these phone calls, there's like a 99% chance that you're going to get a no. So it's how do you deal with that internally and mentally, to get into the next call, to make that next phone call, that next contact, you heard a lot of things about the pray and spray. We got to hit numbers. We have quotas. We have to go out there. We have to do what we need to do to get some kind of revenue pumping through that pipeline. I'm totally against that. You said it earlier that you do that background check on the person that you're reaching out to them, know them really, really good, their likes, their dislikes, where they've worked, what kind of vertical they've worked in, their company, what they do, why they do it, when they do it, and so forth and so on. Because that gives you that upper hand, right? Because now you're talking apples to apples rather than apples to oranges and not knowing a damn thing who you're reaching out to. So personally, what I like to do is take my time and identify that mode, that vertical, that niche, that person, that company, and spend a lot of time doing, that background check and gaining that knowledge to move forward. Right? I mean, I think that's the best way to do this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And one thing I did forget to mention is that one of the things, and I should have said this up front, was oftentimes when you're making phone calls, you get people's voicemail.
Right.
And one of the things that I did pride myself on was taking the things that we talked about as far as doing thorough research as best we can anyway on that prospect, knowing as much as I could about the person I'm reaching out to so that I can leave a semi-intelligent voice message that at least they won't just erase it. They might say, well, okay, maybe if this guy calls again, I'll talk to him.
Right.
So I think it's just as important to have a nice scripted, a particularly scripted voice message to leave for people so that they know you're serious, they know you've done your research, and you're not someone just necessarily to be blown off.
Yeah. And as you said earlier about the bear market, let's just touch a little bit into that. Now, obviously, when it's a bear market, you don't have that much freight out there, and the prospects, they're not really shipping a lot. That's the reason why you don't have freight, right? So how do you get through the next couple of months knowing that you don't have freight? You have to get revenue into that pipeline, as we just mentioned. What do you do? How do you keep people motivated in such a down market?
I've never, I really did think hard about this, and I realized that a bear market is defined, or it occurs when prices in a market decline by more than 20%. And it's usually accompanied by, as you just mentioned, negative investor sentiment and declining economic prospects.
Right.
But I never think in terms of bear or a bull. I simply think in terms of the sales environment, and I think in terms of competition. And the reason I say that, and I'm sure people will disagree with this, but I kind of find it to be true. Have you ever talked to anybody that you wanted something from where they weren't in a bear market? I've never talked to anybody that said, the market's up 20%. I got money to spend, Mike. Let's talk.
Yeah,
Never happened to me in my whole career.
no way.
Not once. Everybody that I ever talked to, I simply assume that we're in a bear market, and I always operate that way. If I get very lucky and, we're in a great, great, great economy and people are like actually looking to see if they can get something better and they're not afraid to spend more, that just makes my life easier. It doesn't matter if you call it a bear or a fox or a bunny rabbit market. Call it what you will. It's just, to me, it's all just opportunity, and it's my opportunity versus the competition that I'm dealing with. So what I do is I work my hardest to get to know that company. Again, sticking with the bear market thought, I get to know that company as best I can. I do ask people for visits and plant tours and try to talk to people. If it's a manufacturing company, let's say, and there's still a lot of that going on here in Texas, and I've been to loads of plants, and I always ask people for a tour. And and the two things, and I know Jeffrey, you'll back me up on this. The one thing that became my complete sales Bible was call high. Always call high. When you do your research, find out who the C-level executives are and call all of them. And in many cases, I would always start with the chief financial officer for two reasons. They know where all the money goes. They know what they're spending. They know who spends the money, and they know what it's spent on. You'll have chief executive officers that all they'll do is tell you, well, my CFO does that.
Yep.
I don't do that. Or my plant manager does that. They don't do that. So it's always easier to get kicked downstairs than it is to get kicked upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
So I always focus on the chief financial officers for starters. And hopefully that leads me where I need to. And many a time, the thing you get with the chief financial officer is that person, if they are interested, if you capture their interest and you have something that they're interested in, because they are almost always either part owners or stockholders, or at the very least, they are huge, big money makers in their company. Everything they do is for both the company and them because it's all in their best interest. So they almost never steer you to the wrong place.
No. And
So
something.
I really focus hard on that.
Right. And something on that as well is that, sure, they put their John Hancock on the checks and everything. And if everything is always the same every single month, and there's not a huge deviation in their expenditures, then it is always going to sign off on it. The thing is, when you talk to a C-level one and you bring the data, you remove the emotional part of the decision making out of it, and you show them, especially if you have their numbers, and you show them where they're either inefficient or here's an area of opportunity, they're all ears. They're all ears. And then once you gain that trust and you show them, especially if it's their data, and you go, here, Mr. CFO, take a look at this. I'm looking at your information, that you've shared with me. This is what we found. And there's a high probability when you're able to do that and talk numbers and show them the hidden bank opportunities, as I call them, they'll open up. and that's when. But if you go to the logistics manager or the traffic manager, that's they're going to protect. They always think that you're going in there to take their job. That's the mentality that they have.
Right.
You go to the C level and you bypass that, and you get past that gatekeeper. They're the ones that have the ears, because those are the people that pay their logistics manager, the supply chain manager, the inventory manager, all of that. So that's why you want to go and gain their trust that way. But it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to be patient, like you said. You have to be persistent, but you have to be patient.
Yeah, and if you end up with, let's say, a logistics manager, the thing that they know is that you're there at the direction of their boss.
Correct.
So they know they've got to at least listen to you. They can't just kick you out the door.
Exactly.
You have somebody showing up at the dock door with donuts.
There you go.
So and there's a lot of things that go into selling logistics services. It's important to know the prospect's business. You need to have a clear understanding. If you're not doing business with other companies that are similar to the prospect that we're talking about, you better find out about them. They do not want, no prospect wants to be Mike's training ground. They don't want to be my training ground. They don't want to teach me their business. They're too busy running it.
Correct.
So it's real important that you do all those things.
Yes. Now, most importantly, how important is give me better value, be honest, and bring innovative solutions to a prospect?
And I wrote this from some notes that I was looking over. I knew you were going to ask this question, of course. But all indications in my past are that prospects who choose this, getting a better value, as their number one piece of advice, are directing that advice mainly at carriers and brokers, and it's advice worth noting. They may say the providers I work with are very similar. Show me a cost differentiator. Or if you want to get my attention, do it cheaper than the other guy. So it's important to get as much information as you can about the prospect so that you can present a better value. And I think maybe above all, be honest. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know, and then say, but I will find out, and do yourself the biggest favor you can ever do yourself. And that is find out fast, and get back to that person quickly with good information. That will earn you more points than you'll ever know. You'll never, because they will always remember that Jeff came back to me. Hey, this guy, Jeff, I didn't really know him, but I posed this problem to him. And, within 4 or 5 days, he was back to me and said, hey, I looked into it. I looked at some other customers of mine who have similar challenges, and here's what they're doing, and here's the results they're getting. Here's what they're doing to overcome it, and here's the solutions. Do you think maybe this will work for you? People appreciate that way more than you can think about, because you're not the one dealing with that problem.
Right.
But once you help them solve it, they're like, wow, that guy Jeff was really, really helpful.
No, absolutely, Mike.
Be completely honest.
Yeah, and you know something? When you talked about value before, and they're looking for the cheapest rate, I won't go there. I will not devalue my value because I've worked for that value. It's just not yesterday. So what I bring to the table, as well as yourself, is knowledge, experience, case studies that you've worked in the trenches, you've seen it before, you understand it because you were able to uncover it, those hidden bank opportunities, and now you're trying to help them out. So everybody wants to dive to the bottom, right? They're always looking for the cheapest rates. you got to back down sometimes. You got to know when to say no. This isn't worth me pursuing. It's going to take more labor to control and manage this prospect than it would be if I brought them in just to get another 250 to 500K in the bank on the pipeline, you know. And I'm just saying that just a wide range, but it happens.
No, but it's true, and I know I just said about a minute ago about one customer had made the remark to me, show me how you can do it cheaper, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, the all things to all people approach just turns people off. It really does. Pie in the sky does not work. It's important to bring innovative solutions to people, show people that you can solve problems in a unique way, even if it's going to cost more. Value ends up being more important than just a dollar figure. 3PLs, for the most part, were great firefighters, but we're not capable of recognizing a problem that's brewing sometimes and being able to solve it before it blows up into a big issue. So that's why I feel it's so important to gain as much knowledge of the person you're dealing with, the company that they work for, and being able to maybe even anticipate. One of the notes I made a little earlier that I didn't mention, but I know Jeffrey totally, he and I did this together a bunch of times, was when we were dealing with prospects and even people that had kind of sort of signed on, but we weren't fully there yet, was getting to know the people who did the real work, the people on the line. We think about, and this, I know this will bring a lot of fond memories to Jeffrey's heart. We dealt with who is probably the biggest wheelchair manufacturer on the planet. And I'm very proud to say that we brought them on as a multi-million-dollar customer for an old company of ours. And the chief executive officer of that company looked around the room at his board one day while Jeffrey and I were sitting there. And this is typical New York, so excuse my French and everything else. And he looked at everybody and said, now you know why I hired these fucking guys. just like that. And it was Jeff and I in front of 20 people in a giant conference room in a giant corporate headquarters in Long Island, New York. And the way he said that, and everybody just looked at him like, yes, boss, yes, boss, yes, boss. They all bowed and scraped as he said that. And Jeff and I just sat there with our heads held high. And we literally could do no wrong for that man. Anything he needed, he picked up the phone. He would call Jeffrey. He would call me. And he would call us both. He said, guys, all right, we're going to open a factory in Romania. I'm not making this stuff up. What do I do? Holy crap, I just found my way to Sparta, New Jersey. Romania? Where the heck is that? But that's the kind of impact you can have. There's a lot of luck involved, but a lot of it was our persistence, our patience, and our hard work.
Hey, look, I gained my flying miles. I'm going down to Atlanta, Pico Rivera, California. I was flying all over the place, looking what you said, going on tours, seeing those open door opportunities, bringing information back, sitting down. And guys, every time that we went out, like Mike and I, we'd be in the car, we would have a pre-game chat. What about this? How are we going to do this? What are your thoughts on this? You know, what are we going to go after today? Because we can't go after everything. And we had those chats because they're very, very important to kind of get that mindset. And you know, that's our last bullet point, you know, how to get that client for life mindset and being able to give them what they're looking for and be consistent with it. And that's what it's all about. You have to talk amongst yourself and figure out the strategy and be tactical about it. And that's how you get the win-wins.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, it was it was awesome, man. When we did all that kind of stuff, and that's where basically I found my sales background because I had the operational background. I wasn't in sales, but my friend here, Mr. Q, he helped me develop that, and I have a new way of doing things that I've been doing over the last 10 years, but it works. And you just have to be, like Mike said earlier, you have to be persistent on how you go after these prospects. You have to know who you want to go after. And at that time, well, how we found out, we had a system called Profit, and it was our CRM. And what we did,
Right.
yeah, and what we did, and how I came up with the numbers, and I said this multiple times, and my ex-boss will be able to confirm this, is that if you do it right and you're in the CRM, obviously everybody that has their finger on the pulse on a specific client has access to it. It's not something that's very simple to put in. It's kind of dynamic because you're putting in all their information, who the people you're talking to, their birthdays, their likes, their dislikes, where their office complexes are, where's the headquarters, who are the people who are in charge at each one of these. Now, when you do these things, make a call, go into CRM. It's about a 7-minute journey from cradle to grave, from the prospect to the information gained to the information entered, and then moving on to the next one. And so when I talk about this, and I use 1,000 calls per month, 3,000 in a quarter. Now, if you take 3,000 phone calls that you make and it takes 7 minutes, that's 21,000 minutes of time spent praying and spraying and going after these prospects. Now, out of those 3,000, you're going to get about 180 of those clients that will be qualified clients, and about 2% that, or 3.6 will most likely come on board, small to large. Now, in that time frame, if you pray and spray and you got those 3.6 clients coming on board into the pipeline, it could be anywhere from 50,000 to 250,000. You might get lucky and get 1 million of flow in that time frame. However, if you took the 21,000 minutes of time spent making phone calls and you concentrated on the big hitters, that's what I like to go after. Something in the 1 million, 5, 10 million, $15 million transportation spend, and you took that time and you did all the background checks, you found out all their locations, you just drilled into those companies that you wanted to go after and know more about that company and their operations better than they do. So when you make those phone calls, you have a higher probability of getting that business. Just imagine if you did that on every time, instead of, hey, I've got to make 1,000 phone calls a month, 250 a week. What am I getting out of it? How much time am I spending? What's the labor that you're getting paid? Whether you're getting a salary base and then you're getting commission on top of that, is your time spent wisely? That's what you really have to look at. And when you own your own business, you look at that all the time. Where am I winning? Where am I failing? Do I want to continue pursuing this, or do I want to let that customer go? There's times that prospects are not worth your time and effort, and you have to let them go. You really do. Do you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, Jeffrey, I do very much. And I tell you what, you made me reminded me of probably the most important part of my background, which kept me thinking along those lines, was that I grew up in operations. So I never forgot that everything as a salesperson I ever asked anybody to do was going to take work. Salespeople don't think it takes any work. They think they're the only ones working. They do. Believe me, and I beat the tar out of quite a few salespeople. I've had as many as 150 people at a time working directly for me. I've been pretty harsh on some salespeople for that weakness. I consider it a weakness.
I can confirm. I can concur.
right?
Beat me
The
up a few
people,
times too, and it was
but
well worth the beating.
but the people that are the people that you're asking to make a change because you think you're presenting a better way of doing things, this is going to impact a lot of people in that organization, and it's going to take them changing, which involves work. So, and it all ties into what you said about measuring your time. I never set a goal for number of calls to make. What I set a goal for was, am I being productive all day? And yeah, I had plenty of lapses. I did have a good sales gene in me. I had plenty of lapses, but at the end of the day, I would look at what I had done. Did I achieve what I wanted to achieve? Usually not, because I didn't always sell something.
Right.
But what I did do was I put a good, solid, smart effort into what I was doing. So I knew that the next day was going to be a better day if I kept doing good stuff. So I just wanted to say that before. I know you wanted to talk about some selective marketing. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to get that little piece of opinion in.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about selective marketing in short, and how do you go about marketing yourself, your business today in what we're all feeling, being pressed to get those numbers, to fill that pipeline, to make those calls. How do you market yourself appropriately to get people to know who Mike Q is or who Jeff Dickinson is?
Yeah, I think, and as Jeffrey knows, after I sort of kind of technically retired, I got tired of the company I was with had been very good here in Dallas. They were owned and run by a finance company headquartered in Manhattan, who were great. But they sold the company off to another finance company who were literally the opposite. I was the I was the only person in the whole company they didn't fire. They fired 45 people. They kept me. And it was, and you think about talk about small thinking. They hired all the people that did, quote unquote, the work. I
Right.
was just the sales guy. Yes, I was successful. And that's all they looked at. They saw my name attached to all the accounts and the dollars coming in, but they didn't realize all the people it took to make this all happen.
Right.
And we're talking 40, 50, 60 people. So they just went through and they hired people cheaper and unqualified. It was a disaster. So I said, hey, it's time to get out of this. So took some time off, enjoyed doing a little bit of traveling, things like that. And Jeffrey and I were talking one day, and I said, you know what, let me start something small and see if I can make it work. And it's been a bit of a struggle. Um, so I haven't really gotten it off the ground, but I do have an official company in LLC, and I am doing that. But to answer the question about selective marketing, the marketing plan is an important part. It's your blueprint for professional growth, for business growth. A couple of things. One was establish clear business and link these objectives directly to your sales plan. Two, map out strategies and marketing tactics. How are you going to advertise? What about public relations? What's the contact going to be? Are you going to do any kind of direct marketing or special events? Know these things, have these thoughts written out before you proceed. Create an execution plan with dates, and goals already set up, and see dates and who's responsible for what. In my case, it's kind of sort of me.
Right.
But if you're running a sales organization and you've got a number of people that are responsible for certain aspects of that sales org, who's going to be in charge of what, that's real important. Make sure that you measure results in order to determine if you're getting your money's worth out of your team's efforts. It's important. It's a marketing investment. It's costing somebody money somewhere, whether it's coming out of your pocket personally or the company's pocket. It always costs money. It's good to know where the money's coming from and where the money's going. And again, it doesn't matter if you're working for yourself or if you're reporting to, somebody at Mount Olympus. You still have to report to somebody and explain, when the boss says, "Hey, Mike, where'd the money go?" It's good to be able to tell them where the money went. So that's a good thing. And I've noticed that the way companies buy today is different. And we as logistics people, we really haven't evolved our marketing and selling practices to address new ways of buyer behavior. And by that, I mean some of the basics like social media, things like that. Those are hard things for me, especially. I have a great challenge wrapping my head around all those things. I really do struggle with that. And I totally sympathize with anybody else that does. So if it's something that you're not great at, see if you can find somebody who is really good at it or knowledgeable about the way to use those tools, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
One of the things that I do notice is logistics companies, we always ask salespeople to fill the pipeline as well as to work and close deals. But a lot of people often lack the talent to do efficient lead generation.
Hmm.
So it's important that you figure out ways to do lead generation. And I can't remember the name of one of the tools that the company I was with here in Dallas that they supplied me with. It was a great because we did a lot of ocean also, import and
Right.
export as well as air cargo. I cannot remember it. If I remember it, I'll get the name out to Jeffrey. They were very expensive. They were headquartered in New York City, and they were way better than any of the United States government websites as far as tracking. They were able to track every import and export coming into and out of the United States. And it cost, I know that the company paid about $7,000 a year for
Wow.
me to have access to this. And for every other person, it was another $1,000. I did not know about this website. They had it when I got there. And when I looked at it, I said, "Oh my God, where have you been all my life?" And there were 5 other salespeople working in the Dallas office when I started. None of them used it.
Hmm.
None of them used it. And I used to have to go beg the chief executive officer, who was a great guy, was right around the corner from me in the offices. We were right in the airport in DFW International. And I would say, "Chris, please, I know this is running out. And I know you're looking at the money that you spend on it. And I'm begging you, please don't cancel it." And he said, "You're the reason I won't cancel it."
There you
He
go.
said, "We can see who uses it. You use the living daylights out of it. I used it to death. It was one of the best tools I've ever had in my entire 30 plus years in sales. I never saw anything like it. And it had things like it had accurate information about the chief executive officers, the products, the import points, where things were exported from, the products, how many containers, what size containers, any special needs. It was insane the amount. So all the things that we've talked about in the last just about hour, I was able to pick up a phone and actually have the name of the person I wanted to start with, the chief financial officer of the company,
Right.
and be able to say, "Mr. or Mrs. So and so, here's what I see you importing from Punjab, India, or from South Korea, or wherever. And
Right.
I see you're using this and you're using this ocean carrier, but you're using these people to forward it around the United States. And here's where your warehouses." And they would be like, "How the hell do you know all this stuff?"
Right.
And so I would just say something idiotic like, "Well, I just do a good job researching." Well, I had this incredible tool where I'm sitting there reading it right off the computer to them. And it was bizarre. So it's so important to use the tools that you can. And Don't be afraid to research other tools. Again, just import and export. The government has tons of websites where you can actually get very good information for free. Costs nothing. Just do, as the joke now goes,
Right.
Google it.
Right.
You know, it's there. You know, a lot of times logistics companies want to move to lead generation before they clearly define the company's marketing position and your selling proposition. So make sure you know what you want to say before you do some of the other stuff.
Right.
Getting money for marketing is hard. Senior executives see marketing as a cost center, and they don't see it as an investment. This is not changed in anybody's lifetime on this call. Senior executives do look at marketing as like it's some kind of razzle dazzle stuff that the sales guys are spending a ton of money on. That's the way
Right.
they look at it. So part of your job for putting together a good marketing campaign is being able to market it internally so that you get the money that you need to do it the right way.
Well, you got to have the buy-in, and then also
Right.
part of the marketing is that you have to have a good ROI on the amount of money that you're pouring into it, or it's just going to be a waste.
Exactly. And once you can start, as Jeffrey said, once you can show the return on the senior management's investment, you got a winner on your hands. Then they trust you. Then they believe you. And always remember that buyers are frustrated with generic sales pitches. Be specific. Just, hey, it's not, for lack of a better term, hi, I'm Mike, I'm from FedEx. Well, FedEx is now the largest transportation company in history, not just on the planet, in history. No one's ever been bigger.
Right.
They have the third largest air force in the world. Number one is the United States.
Right.
Number two is, I won't tell you. Number three is FedEx Corporation. It's just staggering to think about that. But you've got to be specific when presenting yourself. Here's why I'm calling. Here's what I have to offer you.
Right.
And it's got to be based on stuff they actually need. Hey, Mike, that's great, but we don't do that. Oh, okay, bye.
Right. So the thing is that you have to find the great differentiator between you and your competitors. What makes Mike different than others? A lot of people sometimes don't really dive into themselves, not into others, but into themselves. Who is Mike Q? Who is Jeff Dickinson? What is my value? What makes me different than other people? And you have to believe in that in order to sell it. If you don't believe in what you're selling, you're going to have a tough time. You have to be committed to your goals and objectives, not just next week, a month from now, a quarter, or a year, but in the present. What is Mike Q? What is Jeff Dickinson going to do today that's going to change tomorrow? Yesterday shouldn't even be worried about because that's gone. It's over. The only thing that you gain from that is knowledge, where you went wrong, and how are you going to change that in order to move forward on a positive note. That's all it is. But you have to be willing to say that to yourself. I'm not happy with what I'm doing. Why am I not happy? How can I be a better person, a better presenter, a better salesperson, just a better human being? Do I believe in what I'm saying is truthful? Is it honest? Am I going to get a buy-in? If I don't get that buy-in, why am I not getting that buy-in? Where did I go wrong? Are you taking notes? Are you looking at it? Are you recording your calls with your prospects and listening to what you're saying? If it's great that you can hear your prospects' responses, it even helps you more. It's that emotional tone, that feeling, the aha moments, like, yeah, right, something like that. It's like, oh, well, I said something that didn't go across very well. But if you say something there like, really, that's a whole different term. Tell me more. So, you have to dig in to who you are and what you want to do. And it's very difficult. It can't happen overnight. It takes weeks, days, months. It really does. Don't expect, a miracle overnight. It's not going to happen. You really got to think about it every single day and stay true to who you are.
Yep, but I think the most important point of all in marketing is you. How do you market yourself? And I think the thing that's worked best for me, and I know it's worked best for Jeffrey too, is you market yourself by being personable and professional.
Yes.
Kissing people up one side and down the other. There's a lot of people out there to do it. We've all seen it and we've probably all experienced it. And aside from making you want to throw up, it's also something that there are people that like that, but I think at the end of the day, they don't respect it. And you are better being as personable and professional as you can be.
And you know what? That is a great note to end the show on today, Mike. I
That's good.
appreciate you joining me today, my friend. I'd love to have you back, at a later date for sure. Talk about other things because we definitely have more things to talk about for sure. So thanks, Mike.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Great. So
Bye-bye.
next week on the Storytelling Chronicles, I'm having Saritha Williams. She's the CEO of SJW Logistics, who will be joining me. So make sure to put that on your calendar and join the show. If you like, share, subscribe to my channel. We're live here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. With that said, everybody have a great day. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care now.
Thanks, guys.
Have it. Another logistics life and lesson learned. Until next time.